Alrighty, friends. So I don't think I've done a video like this in a while, going over my thoughts on an upcoming patch or my thoughts on the game at the moment. But the reason why I don't really do those types of videos that often, and the reason why there's no PTR footage in the background right now, this is kind of just some random PvP footage that's going to be playing in the background throughout this video, because I kind of just want to talk to y'all today. But yeah, the reason why I don't really do these videos that often is because the upcoming patch is kind of cool, I guess. And that's kind of becoming a problem because that is what has been the theme with a lot of the patches, or pretty much every patch that we've been getting. It's pretty funny because I distinctly remember a year ago, people asking me things about the game, about the state of the game. Do I think we need features, balance, systems, all these things in the game? And I remember saying to everybody asking me that, give them time. You know, the game has barely been out for a year. Sure, we need a lot of those things, all of those things, but I was giving them, a break for quite a while because of one, how rocky of a launch the game had, but because of how much they had on their plate. So that was almost a year ago, and we're coming up on 2 years now, and we are still needing a lot of those things. Now, I don't want to just start off negative. I want to kind of talk about the positive things, or the things that I'm excited about that are coming in season 2 and a little bit afterwards. I want to mention that I am talking about PvP and the state of that, and not about PvE and how that affects the game. But the new arena map is definitely something I am excited about. It's something we've all been asking for so long. The if not balance, at least give us some form of terrain, line of sight, elevation, just thought behind the design of the areas that we're going to be fighting in. Because, as we all know, there's certain weapons that dominate the game for a reason. But that we'll kind of go into in a little bit. The map I'm super excited about, and not only the map, but I really hope that they continue with the philosophy for that, and just continue to give us more maps in general, especially for OPR. The other thing as well that's coming a little bit later down the line is Influence 2.0. If you haven't heard of that, there are definitely some more videos that have gone much more in detail than I'm going to go into in this video. Definitely check out my friend Christopher, because he talks about it a little bit in one of his videos. But they are planning on adding control towers, which will be an addition to forts another way and the quest to earn influence. But aside from that, it's just going to add another layer to open world PvP, which is, I think most PvPers can agree, definitely the best or the most enjoyable attraction in the game, at least for me, and I feel like should definitely be getting way more love than it has been getting. So anything PvP related for open world, I'm definitely down for. But honestly, besides that, the new weapon and maybe the mounts, that's really it that is going to be something that I'm excited about. And that's really the issue, I feel, at least in terms of PvP. I can accept that content isn't something that we will be getting a lot of, but one of the really glaring issues with PvP, I feel like, has been since the inception of the game and will only continue to get worse, which is balance, or the lack thereof. Now, I really hate comparing other games, or just comparing games in general, because it is very hard to say that X thing that worked in one game will work in another game, because 9 times out of 10, usually 10 times out of 10, they're completely different games, different systems, different engines, different thought and philosophies behind designing the games. So, most of the time, if not every time, it's hard to say whether or not something that worked in one game will work in another. But because balance was not one of the things that was present during the inception of this game, not only was it not thought about or present, but it was supposed to be a different game. And they kind of patched together an MMO last minute. So with that, with there being no balance at the start, if you don't immediately correct that, it's going to just continue to get worse and worse and worse. And the issue that New World has had at its core since the beginning is the fact that the thing that makes the game have bad balance is not only the fact that the weapons themselves don't have balance between them in terms of damage, defense, and utility, but on top of that, we're playing a game that doesn't have classes. We're only using weapons. Now, that I don't necessarily mind that not having classes and being forced into an identity and being able to make your own identity with your character is one of the things I enjoy most about this game and RPGs in general. But the issue comes in where not only do you only have 3 ability slots per weapon, but of those 3 slots to choose from, you can either put in a damage ability, or a damage ability. And that what ends up happening over time in combat is the game kind of incentivizes you to do the things that we end up seeing today, which is either run range DPS, because range DPS is obviously king in a action combat system that has a really big open world with no terrain, or run from fights. And I'm sure the same thing that annoys you annoys everybody, and myself included. It's really annoying to get into a fight with somebody, and the second they take damage, they immediately retreat from the fight and look for their team, or to run into a bow or mage player who, as soon as you close the distance, the same thing, they just immediately run away. And I can go on and on for days. There's a bunch of those things that I'm sure nag a lot of us in PvP. But when you really kind of take a step back, can you really blame the people who are utilizing these things? Because as I mentioned, there is very little balance, and in this bad balance that we have, your only choices of abilities or skills to use are damage abilities. And our only source of defense is the dodge roll or the iframe. I'm not even going to get into the armor weights because that's a whole nother discussion or another video. But your only defense in this game essentially is potions and dodging abilities. So it's really hard to balance around that continually in a game, and we're over time continually just increasing the damage that we do, and as of late decreasing the amount of damage that we can withstand. And it's just going to lead to the point to where every single patch, a certain weapon or weapon combination is going to be the best thing to use that patch. And it's usually because, for whatever reason, whatever they buff that patch allows that weapon to bypass a lot of these problems that I'm discussing currently. Now, I brought up earlier comparing games, and the reason for that was because I kind of wanted to talk about a game that I used to play that a lot of you definitely might have played before or heard of, but if not, I'll kind of talk about it in a bit here, but it is Elder Scrolls Online. Now, I can talk about this game for quite a while, but there is also a bunch of its own problems that this game had. But one of the things from the inception that this game did very well was they had balance in mind. Now, one of the things that made it easier in their case compared to New World was they're also using a weapon system to where you can choose what weapons you are using and then customize your build that way. But on top of that, they had classes. So it was very hard to find yourself on a build that had no damage, no defense, no utility, and no mobility, because all of the weapons had some form of damage, some form of a defense or utility ability, some kind of gap closer or mobility ability, and then the rest were kind of just extras or damage abilities. And then if the weapons didn't have that, the classes had abilities to make up for that. So, for example, let's say you wanted to run a dual wield melee build in that game, but you wanted to play on a Templar. Dual wield does not have any gap closers on it, but Templar does. So it was very hard to find yourself in the situation that a lot or most builds are in New World, where you lack a lot of these core things that are very, very important to a build in an MMORPG, such as utility, defense, and mobility. Now, most of that I'll say is definitely the developers or the game's fault. But there's definitely some blame to go to the players for choosing to go with two weapons that have no mobility, and then choosing to, I guess, continually fight weapons that do have it, because you're only going to end up running into a brick wall with that. But yeah, it's a really, really tough scenario. It is much easier said than done to lay out the problems. I'm sure the devs are aware and have been aware of a lot of these glaring issues. But with all that being said, the crazy thing about it is, I'm sure if you ask any PvP player in this game, or even myself, I can definitely tell you, with all of those things, the lack of content, the actual virtual lack of balance, and all these problems I've kind of discussed up until now, I can still easily say this is my favorite MMO that I ever played, and it's simply because of the combat. The combat is actually that fun, and it's been carrying this game for almost 2 years now. Now, I'm sure that the combat is getting a pretty sore back, and I'm not too sure how much longer it can do that. But yeah, we're definitely getting to that point to where it's going to kind of make or break the game for a lot of people, I feel like. We can only go on so long getting, you know, none of the big things that the game kind of really needs. And I really, really hope that they do kind of start to find breakthroughs and start to get some of these things in the game. I think mainly balance would be the biggest thing, because while content would be nice, I feel like if at the very least, if PvP felt fair all around, which I definitely feel like if you're a veteran, it doesn't really feel that fair depending on what you're fighting. But compared to a newer player, especially, you just get dumpstered by every single thing in the game. And it sucks, you know. I see it a lot. That's one of the things that I definitely see brought up everywhere, in Reddit and streams and my comments. It's really, really tough on new players to get into the game, and even for me to give tips. Every time somebody who's new to PvP asks me what they should do, it's honestly hard for me to kind of give them tips on what to do to improve at the game, because while there are things I can say, such as learning all of the other weapons and builds in the game and getting comfortable with your iframe, it only goes so far. You can't really expect every person who gets into the game to kind of sit down, study it, and dedicate all their time to PvP to kind of start to have fun with it. You know what I mean? I feel like the system should be fun at the beginning and then have a high ceiling to where, you know, we can kind of express ourselves and play the game with the way we do now. But currently, it's just, if you've been playing since launch, then I guess you're good, and you lucked out. But if you get into the game at any point after, I feel like the first year, it is definitely pretty tough on you. But I don't want to rant too long. I apologize for these streams. I actually did recently move, as you can tell by the sound. I'm definitely gonna have to fix this and get used to it, because it is going to end up bothering me. But we're going to be resuming the streams very soon. But let me know what you all think. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely excited about the upcoming changes, and I'm definitely nowhere near close to quitting the game because, as I mentioned, it's still my favorite MMO that I've ever played. But definitely let me know what you all think and what your thoughts have been on just the game in general, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has been thinking about this. But as always, thank you all so much for watching and have a wonderful day.